This is David Barilla. You're watching the Orlando Real Podcast.
In this episode of the Orlando Real Podcast, I talked to David Barilla. He's the executive director at the City of Orlando Downtown Redevelopment Board. He's the guy that's helping reshape the downtown area and bring along a lot of the things that I've been talking about for the past year. In this episode, we talked about bringing jobs downtown, nightlife, and a whole bunch of other things that are going to make downtown Orlando really special. Stay tuned. David, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So what is it that you do for DTO?
Yeah, so, I am just so excited to be able to have some impact on DTO. The great thing about it is we do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So I represent two different organizations that both get to focus on the exact same area,
Okay.
which is downtown Orlando, if you don't know what that DTO contextually stands for.
Yep.
So just a little bit of history, if anyone's interested. It's actually in the 70s. When you saw retailers, so you remember when there were big boxes in downtown, you had your JCPenney's and those types of things that were in our city centers started to move out, right? We had these things called major malls, shopping malls. They started to go there. Just think about it, air conditioning. They were inside, easy to park. So downtowners actually got together and they agreed to tax themselves. They said, hey, we want to compete. We want to make sure that we're active. So since then, individual property owners have been taxing themselves in downtown to really kind of advocate on their behalf, to do marketing, to showcase all those things, almost think like a mall manager would do. So that's one component that we get to do to really kind of tell the story of downtown, encourage people to come down and see all the things that it's all about. The other side, it happened a little bit later. So the Community Redevelopment Agency, the kind of the bigger hat that I wear, was started in the 80s. So that's when you saw the white picket fence component, people moving out to the suburbs, leaving our downtowns and city centers. So they started to fall behind. Sometimes downtown was kind of used as almost a negative term. Like, do you really want to go downtown?
Yeah.
But so what happened effectively at that time is the city and the county got together, and this happened in a lot of different communities. We are not unique in that context, is that they agreed to basically freeze the tax base. So they said, hey, within this area, we have finite boundaries that, if we're collecting, for conversation's sake, $50 million in property taxes, we'll continue to do that. We'll provide the traditional city services. But anything above that, so as properties got developed or they appreciated, we'll take that additional tax revenue, we'll put it into a separate account, trust fund, so to speak, and you can invest that back into the area for redevelopment to kind of get downtown, back to the glory that it used to be. So I get to manage that, which means effectively we do a little bit of everything. So marketing campaigns to educate people downtown, working with developers and public-private partnerships to bring some exciting new projects in downtown, working with businesses and recruiting them to the area, and all the way down to, having a team that is responsible for pressure washing those sidewalks, making sure that when you come to downtown, it's something that you want to tell your friends about. So,
man, that's awesome. So define downtown to us, because I think a lot of people think maybe it's a central business district. Other people are like, well, no, I live downtown and it's Thornton Park. Like, how do you define where you're covering?
Sure. So we have finite boundaries to where the funds ultimately come in. So if you can think about it a little bit, the big major roads that define us are kind of Colonial on the north side. If you know where Gore is, it's pretty much one block south of the 408. Most people recognize the 408 in Central Florida. On the east side, it'd be Summerlin. So think Thornton Park. And then on the west side, ultimately Westmoreland, which is just about, if you've ever been to Inter and Co Stadium, you've seen an Orlando City game, it's right about around there. But we dogleg. We have a dogleg on the north side around what we call the North Quarter area, kind of up into that Ivanhoe district, a lot of great things happening there. So anything within that boundary is ultimately kind of comes under our purview. But where we have impact, we really say is, again, if you're in Central Florida, is hospital to hospital. We got Advent Health on our north side. We got obviously Orlando Health on our south side. And that's that greater downtown area that we feel really we're charged with making impact on.
This episode of the Orlando Real Podcast is brought to you by the Posit Group, our real estate team here in Central Florida. Whether you're looking to buy or sell a house, we're here to help when the time comes. Check us out over on Google. We've got 1,600 5-star reviews. Reach out at theorlandoreal.com/real to get started. So downtown, it does seem polarizing. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, but like some people are like, oh, you live downtown. I meet people, they come up and they're like, I live downtown. I freaking love it. It's the best place in the world. And other people are like, I go down there for a game and that's pretty much it. So talk to us about like the future. I saw like a 2015 vision map of DTO's vision map, and I opened it up, and it's beautiful. Like Lake Eola is going to be this way, and we're going to create culture, we're going to create shade. 10 years now that's been like, what's the vision for the future? And did that 2015 actually come to fruition? Like, did they actually accomplish what they were hoping to accomplish?
Sure. So what you're referring to a little bit is what we call Project DTO. It was our 2015, our update to our vision and plan, where we actually had over 6,000 to like 6,600 people of the community came out and really got to dream big.
Yeah.
They were like, hey, this is what I want my downtown to be. Like, this is where I want my kids to grow up and all those type of things. So it was an exciting process to be engaged with. So since then, a lot has happened. I mean, when you think of the progress that's been made, some of it is in big physical components. So think about the progress we've made on having the Dr. Phillips Center for Performing Arts and what that's brought to our community. Now having Inter and Coast Stadium, and ultimately having Major League Soccer championship, Major League Soccer in our downtown. And there's also been a host of new businesses. Creative Village in and of itself, when you really think about where it was in 2015 to where it is now, having EA Sports as our employment anchor, not only in the context of the jobs that they create, but the impact that they're having on the community. We've made so much progress. However, in that same time, some of those big visionary items that the community really told us that they wanted, they're technical exercises, right? So it's like one of the things was two-waying our streets. So for the most part, downtown has a major one-way pair system. So getting that context back and, okay, we want two-way streets, and unpacking why that matters to the rest of the community, but then getting the engineers in place and the people that actually have the technical expertise, to figure out, hey, how does this work? Where does this happen? That process has ultimately also been happening within this period of time. So actually just late last year, it was kind of the culmination of ensuring that we had all that engineering, I call it technical work, really, to ensure, okay, here's these big things that you told us that you wanted. Well, now here's the very specific projects that are ultimately going to, deliver that dream that you shared with us. So
10 years, I mean, it's like, if you create a village. It's funny, I was reading, it was like 5 years ago, we opened up the Kia Center, and I was like, dang, was it not that long ago? So you think about just even 15 years ago, how much has changed downtown. It actually is a massive thing. So where do you want to take it the next 10 to 15 years? What's the vision? I know you're getting more input from the community. Like I'm seeing different renderings. Your offices share some really cool stuff with us. But unpack for us. Like, where are we going in the next 10 years?
So, the next 10 years for downtown Orlando, and I'm fortunate to have one of the front row seats in that is just a complete transformation of the downtown that we know and that hopefully that so many people appreciate. So we were fortunate really to be on this track. So we talk about 2015 when we were visioning with the community. Well, the context of how downtowns operate, urban centers operate, let's just use that context, changed drastically post-COVID. We saw a different way that people worked, different things people wanted for how they lived and also to socialize. So we had started our component before that, and we were actually kind of, let's call it at midfield. We're at the 50-yard line, you know what I mean? And getting through that, COVID happened. So it allowed us to kind of take a quick shift at saying, okay, what do urban centers look like kind of in this, a post-pandemic world and work through that. So it allowed us to now have what we call the DTO action plan and really a block-by-block redevelopment of our downtown that is on the forefront of what urban centers across the nation are ultimately kind of asking themselves now, okay, how do we ultimately start to deliver that experience that people want? So
what do people want?
What do people want? That's a great question. Can you tell me? I don't know.
Well, I've heard it's like, it's a little bit of jobs. It's a little bit of something to do. It's where to live. It's, it's like that where's that refined mix, I think, is what people are looking for. Yeah.
So no, you're spot on. Downtowns, I think what we found in that process have been the economic hubs of cities, right? For decades. I mean, and that's the context of what downtowns are. That's where the big major employers are in often cases, and you have the major stock of your office space. We have over 11 million square feet of office space just in the very small area that I defined for you before. That's not going to change, right? Like we don't see that changing now. How that office space is utilized is changing. So density is actually increasing. We're seeing the context of the amount of leased space that our offices are taking up are smaller, but the number of employees that are actually working in that office space is increasing. So the context there is actually a little bit more vibrancy. Where it gets balanced a little bit is in hybrid work environments, and that kind of goes back and forth. I can tell you from the seat that I have, we see it in different contexts. It seems to be very industry focused. Some industries, working remotely or hybrid works great. Others, it's, hey, this is not, this isn't our jam, so to speak. Like, we need you in office a little bit more to get that creative spark going, get that interconnectivity. But having what we generally call in the real estate market that Class A office space, the main core corridor where you're going to get that most high quality asset, where you want to show your customers that, okay, hey, this is our office.
Check us out.
Come check us out. We got some cool stuff going on. That is one piece of it. So we've been doing a lot of recruitment. I mentioned, EA Sports before, which was a big win for us in order to bring them to downtown. But we've had others. So just this past year, we announced Travel and Leisure. So a huge international firm to that extent that's made a commitment.
They're almost all in office too. I went to the release party. I got not a party, but a get together where they're talking about here's what's coming downtown. And they're like, no, this isn't going to be like 200 people on site and 600. It's like 800 or so people that are going to be working downtown. That's a ton of people.
Yeah, and they're going to grow it to over 1,000. They're taking a massive space just across the street, catty corner, I guess, from the Kia Center. So it's really exciting. I mean, and when you think about just the growth, Paramore is a part of our downtown. They're in Paramore. EA Sports that I mentioned earlier is in Paramore. Some people ask me a question like at one time, like, hey, what's the most astonishing thing to you that has happened, you know what I mean, in the past 10 years? One of the components is to see how much success that the Paramore community has had on multiple different fronts, bringing more jobs, adding more affordable housing. And it's great to see that all of that is working together in a very cohesive fashion. So that's one context I think that we're seeing a little bit of. I'll tell you one thing that I don't want to say we stumbled on in the plan, but it wasn't something that we set out to achieve on the front end, was the value of civic spaces that we heard from our community kind of in that post-pandemic corridor component. So one of the pieces that we're talking about is having downtown itself as a park. Like, that's one of the big ideas. So when you look at downtown Orlando, we talked about the area before a little bit, right? When you look at it from a size perspective, it kind of rivals like a Piedmont Park, right, in Atlanta. So you're like, okay, well, Atlanta's got this whole park that's the size of our downtown area, so like, what do we do? Like, how do we compete with that? Obviously, we can't convert all of downtown into a park, and that wouldn't be the best use for us. But kind of changing the way we thought about that in a little bit is saying, okay, we have so much opportunity in downtown, and what if we started to kind of look at our anchor parks? Most people have heard of Lake Eola. You know what I mean? Even if you're not from Central Florida, I guarantee you, if you Google Orlando, you're going to probably see one of two pictures. You're going to see Cinderella's Castle, or you're going to see Lake Eola.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of two things that's going to pop up, right?
So funny. So we had Lake Eola fountain on as a part of our logo for a while. And people, when I was traveling outside, they're like, "Is that a whale on your shirt?" I'm like, man, like, you got on your shirt. That's
I do. Yeah, there you go.
No, like, have you never been to Orlando? But yeah, if you're right. If you look up anything in Orlando or you're from here, like, you know exactly what that is. So anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So people know Lake Eola and what that brings as a signature park. But we have others, and they haven't really kind of come to their own, right? Like, so we have this amazing opportunity on our south side of Lake Lucerne. So it was really about, hey, making that park something that, from a size perspective, it conceptually rivals our Lake Eola. But when I'm talking to people, I often kind of have people raise their hands, and I'm like, hey, how many of you have had an experience in Lake Eola? And most all hands go up. The rest of the people, they're probably just not being honest with me. But that's okay. We all have those moments, right? Lake Lucerne, I say, okay, well, how many of you had an experience in Lake Lucerne? And you see, probably 10% of those components. But when you think about the context of location, very similar, size, very similar, it's such an opportunity for us. So we have a great plan to actually reactivate and harness really the opportunity there. And it serves as a gateway. It serves as a gateway that it's actually coming into our downtown. So the experience is great too. So that would be on the south side. You got Lake Eola on the east side, which is in its own context, which we have a full master plan out that's actually getting bid out right now to bring over $60 million of improvements to it. But then the north side is kind of making that next, think of us making kind of like a loop around downtown and how you connect all this, is the Orlando Sentinel site. So again, something that's talked about a lot as kind of what's the next vision for the Orlando Sentinel site. One of our most significant redevelopment opportunities just due to its magnitude, but also due to its location right on Colonial, just north of our courthouse. So the conversation really started to yield around there is we need that northern anchor park as well. Now, I am not saying, before anybody says that entire site should be a park. That is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that there is an opportunity there to have a right-sized park that plays into the role of what downtown as a park means. Yeah. And then when you start to go kind of finish that circle around, you start to look at what we used to refer to as under I. So there's 10 acres, under I-4, that was just begging for more activation, begging for more opportunity. So
that's still moving forward?
That is still moving forward. That also recently got bid out. So
I think, the connectivity of like Westcourt downtown, which I'm sure you're super proud of, is that going to move forward here shortly? I know the bonds are approved. What's going on?
All things are pointing to a go. So we're moving full steam ahead as the development team is. So we're excited.
All right, good. Yeah, I mean, you look at all the way from Travel and Leisure, Westcourt, Kia, and then you've got split from I-4. So if you can activate that and then activate Church Street, we've been talking about it for the past year and a half. Like that gets to be really exciting for the downtown core.
Well, I mean, you just hit on kind of where this goes. So we got the canopy, right, that ultimately is coming up under I-4, but then it's connecting it, right? That connectivity is you take all these great parks, ultimately, which hopefully they'll be, but what's that experience like in order to get to all of them? So that, hey, you ultimately have a choice. Like I'm either in downtown already, maybe I'm in my office and I just want to go out for lunch, or I'm going to meet somebody, or maybe I want to make a trip there with my family, and I know what kind of experience I'm searching for, which may be different. I know where I'm going to go, but I also know that, well, if that changes along the way, or there's multiple experiences that I want to have, how do I get there, and what's that experience along the way? So you mentioned kind of like Church Street, the Festival Street concept, which we really announced as another big part of that vision, which is really about how that connection is made, but also about the experience that you have along the way. So, people, when I talk about festival streets, a lot of times people can kind of struggle to what that means. They think it means party.
Let's say 6th Street or something like that. That's what comes to mind. Yeah.
Yeah, like things like that. It's a design feature, really. Sure. You know what I mean? Where you start to think of like seamless curbs, so you can have this kind of blurred line between the pedestrian space and then the vehicular space. Why is that important? It's because vehicles slow down, right? Like you're like, so you have more of a sense of place there, so more trees, more shade, more sidewalk cafes. But yes, sometimes you can't close it down. You can have a festival. You can have a march down to Inter and Coast Stadium when the next championship is ultimately won, or something like that. But it's on Church Street. That's where we're starting it. Church Street's that iconic street. We have an information center in downtown. We call it Discover Downtown. We have merch there too. So a lot of fun things that celebrate our city. But ultimately, that literally sits on Church in Orange, so Main and Main. The number one thing that when especially international visitors come into our information center, they come in and they say, hey, where is Church Street? And our information center, whoever's working there, is like, well, you're kind of on it, because it's not what they anticipated. Sure. The Church Street context that most people have is the story from the Bob Snow days when you had the Rosie O'Grady's and you had that activation. And Church Street's just at a different stage in its evolution. And we know that there's so much more opportunity to kind of reinvigorate that, which is why we're starting there. But that next component, so if you think about really trying to make all those connections, is along Magnolia. So Magnolia, if you can kind of try to place yourself, Orange Avenue, Main South Corridor, most people will recognize that. Roslyn on the east side. Magnolia is that piece in the middle. If you've ever rode a limo bus, you were on Magnolia. But it can feel a little bit quiet, a little bit quaint right now because there's not a lot of activation there. We were fortunate, if you will, from a transportation component. We were one of the first cities to have a bus rapid transit system to what limo is today. Yeah. We're probably also one that hasn't had enough upgrades to it, but we've been retooling that. We're doing a lot of new fun things with transportation. But it changed the way Magnolia operated, right? It took a lot of that frontage, a lot of that
more
parking.
Through street instead of
that businesses really needed to thrive. And you think about when you're making a decision, right? You're going to stop in a someplace to shop or have a bite to eat or go to a boutique or something, you're making probably a mental note as to, okay, what is that going to look like? Where am I going to park? Is it going to be difficult? Yeah. Is there another place that I can get what I wanted that's going to be easier? Yep. And for those businesses along Magnolia, a lot of those things don't fall in their favor right now. So that's part of the experience is kind of who's there, who's around you. So the reshaping of that street and really unlocking its potential again and making it that north-south corridor.
Yeah.
So from Church to Magnolia and then ultimately up to Livingston and back into Creative Village, like we were talking about before, is kind of that main, what we call Festival Street, that core pedestrian experience that will really change the way downtown feels, but also the way it functions. So.
Man, that's cool. I mean, it seems like it's being really well thought out. And so one of the things that I think through is like, what comes first? Is it the safety component? Is the jobs component? You can't get a business to invest in a new shop unless there's people there. I know it's probably everything all at once, but like, how do you even go through that process of like convincing somebody to move downtown, either to live or invest when there's not a lot of bodies in the street? Like, how does that even, is it a tax incentive or what are we thinking through there?
It's a multitude of different things. It really depends on who you're talking to, right? And I don't mean that on the individual person. I mean, let's put them in a space, right? Are you talking to an office that's looking to move here? Are you talking to a developer that's looking to build a residential building or what have you? Because different things start to move that needle.
Yep.
Ultimately, kind of the way where we see that we could be most effective in that is kind of the term I use is like setting the table, letting them understand that we're investing before them.
Yeah.
And, we're committed to making sure that all these great ideas, so to speak, or these great visions are going to come to fruition.
Yeah.
And the success that ultimately the market's had even without them. So when you talk about places to live, I mean, it's a little dated now, but the context of it, I think, still stands. It was 2014, 2015, something like that. Realtor.com kind of released their stats for the year. The number one zip code in the entire U.S. that people were typing as to where they want to live was 32801. Which even when it came out, I was like, yeah, this is a little crazy. But it's the context to, we were talking about the 2015 plan a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
The demand that was in the market for seeing all the great things on the horizon. We were working on our venues plan at the time, right? And bringing so many new things. We had just, a few years earlier launched what was then Amway Center, which is now Kia, having the Orlando City. They have the Dr. Phillips Center and so many things, working on Creative Village. But there was that pent-up demand. We're there again in the context of the changes that we're making. So when you see that type of context, it's really sharing the success of the past and connecting it with the future. You mentioned before as well, kind of, incentives. And that's something that we do as well because we understand that it's a two-way street, and
literally?
Literally, yeah, pun intended.
Oh, there it goes.
So, but in that context, like, they're the groups that we're talking to now. They're going to have to go through some growing pains with us, right? Look, you're gonna wake up to go to work one morning. You're gonna go to drive down Orange Avenue, and you're gonna see a detour sign because we're rebuilding it. Yeah. And there's context to that I don't want to say is a deterrent, but it's something that people have to get comfortable with. And what we educate them in that component is, look, we're willing to lock arms with you during that time and figuring out how you can be a part of this transformation, but be successful through it. Some of that is through incentives. Other components is also through information, just sharing what that change is going to look like, why it matters. You know what I mean? Kind of keeping your eye on the prize and saying, okay, I need to make this investment now. The other part is what I think we find a lot of the groups that we're talking to, whether they be developers, whether they be businesses, recognize that there's opportunities that are available in downtown right now that when all this stuff is done and it's all rolled out, that they're not going to be there then, or they're going to be a very different financial set of circumstances.
At that point, it's already going to be rolling, yeah.
So that conversation is fun.
I look at like Travel and Leisure, and I was shocked when I saw the announcement. Really excited, especially with the money that they're investing and everything else. And I do think about people that go to work there day in and day out. At first, they're probably going to be like, "There's not a ton I can walk to get food, so maybe we have food court in-house," but then a business owner sees that as an opportunity and they're like, oh, I'm gonna take advantage of that. I'm gonna move downtown because I can jump on some of that. And then another business is like, oh, there's cool restaurants opening up. Now we're willing to do it, right? And so I think it starts to snowball over time. You're absolutely right. And so it's almost like we've been talking about it. We love our office space, but we're outgrowing it very quickly. And I'm like, downtown right now it's fairly cheap comparatively. And I think it'd be cool to get ahead of her curve. But as a business owner, I'm looking at it like, I want to make sure that the promises that were made were kept. And maybe that's for you, that's probably your biggest job of just like, hey, we said we were going to do these things, we did them. Now we say that we're going to do these things and we're going to do them. And I think that once that gets perpetuated and believed in, then it's going to take off like crazy.
For sure. So one of that, and it is good, quite frankly, ensuring that the promises that were made, but really showing that we're following through.
Yeah.
It's a challenge, but it's so exciting for me because I do have that front seat and I can see all these things actually taking place. It makes it that much more important to tell the story, but exciting as well to be able to feel so committed behind it.
So cool. So we talked about these parks. I think it's cool, like the renderings and everything, activating the streets, all this stuff is cool. One of the main comments that we get from maybe haters, but maybe just people being truthful is like, we have every downtown, I feel like in America, has a homeless problem right now. And kind of trying to decide, they're like, I'm not going to go there at night and under the I-4 canopy if like there's homeless everywhere. And I remember the mayor mentioned there was like 800 people unhoused in the city. And like, has there been any other cities that have been successful that we say, hey, because safety is a big component, that we plan on trying to make the downtown area safe for the future?
So, safety is a term that impacts different people in different ways.
Sure.
And I can feel safe in a situation and you may not, and vice versa, right?
Sure.
Like, so you just never know.
Yeah.
So it's something that we always are looking at or always trying to figure out, specifically around the homelessness challenge. So, homelessness has grown throughout the nation. We are not isolated from that, one bit. But you start to unpack those conversations, and every single time, whatever the topic of the day might be, but it's like, hey, what are we doing about homelessness? How do we continue to make progress in that? Because right, wrong, or otherwise, it is impacting, my employees, my business, my customers. So it's something that we're always talking about. We just actually, we're really excited to announce that we launched a new program last week. Not sure if you heard about it yet, but it's something that we wound up finding in Vero Beach, of all places, which there's actually a local nonprofit there that was really working on a concept that they thought would help the homelessness in their community. They were trying to ultimately add shelter beds, which if you, the challenge, one of the challenges with homelessness is that it's a component where so many people want to help. But where to help is a question that often gets debated because you get uncomfortable the closer they are to you. It's like, not in my backyard.
Well, Soto just went down, right? Like it was like, hey, we got a new opportunity here. And everybody's like, people of Soto were like, not here though.
Right. And that's just it. But are they...
Which you understand both sides, I'm sure.
100%. Because there are things that come along with that. So, but anyway, to get back to the conversation from before, so Vero started to launch a mobile system where they started to get charter buses. They would convert them. So think like a Greyhound bus or something like that. If or if you're a big touring artist, like you have these buses, and they gutted them and they put actually sleeping quarters in them. So they actually were able to outfit them with 20 different beds in those components. So they don't have any one specific location. You start to get around that debate. Well, this is going to be here and it's going to be here, forever once you build this. And and what's that going to do to my property values, or what kind of experience is that going to be for my kids when they're just playing outside and things like that. So it started to find a way around that conversation. So a number of us, we actually went down. We went down at night. We wanted to see how this operated. Full context, I was skeptical at the time. I'm like, okay, like there's beds on a bus. How's this going to work out? And like, what are those interactions going to be like?
Sure.
Now, when we got there, and we saw something I saw something very different. I saw a very orderly organization. I saw people that were just looking to get some rest.
That's
hardly,
a safe place.
That was safe. That hardly almost even had enough energy left to have a conversation with me when I'm just talking, saying, hey, tell me about what you're experiencing, this, that. After, everyone, he kind of loaded the bus and went on, and you kind of peeked down the aisle, everybody was already fast asleep. And I'm like, wow, like, you can see the need. So that started a conversation with us locally as to, hey, is this something for our community? What would that look like? But it yielded a path. So, the biggest piece on the front end for me was like, our need is so much greater. You mentioned it before, some of the things that the mayor has said, like, how does 20 beds, make a difference? Obviously, in those 20 people's lives, that's a huge difference. But from the seat that I have talking to business owners is, okay, you know what I mean? This is impacting our businesses. Is 20 going to make or break that?
Or 40 buses basically around.
Yeah. So we had several different service providers with us that night. So we kind of started talking through that on our drive back. And ultimately we got back, I don't know, it was like 12 or 1. And then we were getting out of the vehicle and somebody said, well, I think we have an idea to kind of take that and make it exponentially more impactful by combining it with another system that we have for kind of what was known or is known as rush funding, rapid rehousing to that extent that they had seen a lot of success with. So we started kind of working on it and said, okay, what does that yield? What would that look like? We ended up with when you take that system that I mentioned before of the wraparound services that get folks from where they are today, which is unhoused, unsheltered, whatever term you want to use, get them the wraparound services that they need and get them into a home again.
Yeah.
That if we were able to get 2 buses, so 40 beds, and then put those wraparound services around it for 3 years, we can actually get what looks like 407 people off the streets of downtown, and that's impactful.
407?
407.
Exactly, 407.
It was 407. It was
407.
It was 407. I didn't know that. It might have been. It might have been 408 if we rounded, but you can choose. You can choose. You're going to go up or you're going to go down.
Conservative, yeah. That's great, though. I mean, that's the one thing I know. Having gone to the past 3 State of the City addresses and hearing Mayor Dyer talk about all of those different supported systems that people just don't know about, and people roaming around, like the fact that there is funding to approach somebody and say, hey, how can we help you? Like not everybody's out there wants to be out there, right? They want to figure out their next path forward. So you're able to give them a safe place to be and give them the wraparound services. I think that's a great plan.
Yeah, so we're hopeful. So we just had the approval, last week. It's a 2-bus plan. We're hoping them to have them out and operational over the summer and to start making some impact.
Are they air conditioned?
They're air conditioned. Wow. Yeah, they're air conditioned buses. We can send you some pictures if you want to showcase them, but it's really a great job that they ultimately were do with rehabbing these buses. And I would sleep in one, honestly. Yeah. I could see, I'm glad I don't have to.
Sure, yeah.
but it's at a caliber where, again, you or I would be comfortable with, what I mean? I'll go ahead and take and getting some Z's.
So cool. Let's talk about public partnerships with private entities, right? Public-private partnerships, right? And are we seeing more of that? I know you mentioned hey, we got these not TDT, you got these funds set aside from the downtown business owners, and I'm sure a lot of that's to do the parks and stuff is what you're saying, right? Or the different
hats, but yeah. Okay. So are the funds directly from the downtown business owners? That's a lot of the marketing stuff. Yep. The additional funds are for the parks, the public-private partnerships, really anything that starts to redevelop that downtown core.
And so how much of that's being done in terms of pushing forward to try to draw more people? Are there already funds set aside or big initiatives that are being pushed forward or that we just haven't heard about yet?
So, a lot of the big things with public-private partnerships, we start there for a second, are things that we work with, individual developers on or individual companies to really make sure that we're going about it the right way, right? Because what happens oftentimes is you create these, or at least is what we found, you create these on-the-shelf programs, and if you do X, we'll do Y.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work in all situations. So when you're working on some of the bigger things, like one of the big ones that we launched last year was obviously Westcourt or the sports entertainment development, you really got to figure out, at least in a collaborative fashion, as to, okay, here's what we need from the public side to really be able to justify our investment, because we want to see this happen, but we also need to see benefit to the community. We want to make sure we're rowing in the same direction, but also what is at their disposal, right? So if one things that we talk about oftentimes is affordable housing. And making sure that we have, just enough housing, period, in our community at all levels. Affordable is one that is more challenging just by the nature of the financial structure. But if you go about that with the rubric and say, hey, developer, you know what I mean? Because I made this program and you have to deliver me, 100 affordable units if you're building whatever, 1,000 or something of that nature. When you start to unpack that with folks who ultimately live in that world, well, that's a different financing structure. That's a different way of operations. And you can start to actually end conversations before they even start.
Sure.
So we always want to make sure that we're keeping our options open while also ensuring that we're delivering something feasible and workable to the community they can have on the back end. So those conversations are some things that we're having often. In the current market condition, public-private partnerships are on the forefront of every developer that we sit and talk with, because they're having challenges making sure that, hey, the cost of funding, the cost of construction, how are we going to keep momentum going? So a lot of people say, oh man, here they come asking for money again. I'm encouraged by the conversations because it says that they're considering us. We just got to figure out if there's a realistic middle ground here to see if we can move something forward on that side. Some of the things, and I don't really know that there's much behind the scenes really right now that's working forward. I mean, the big launch last year which we can say was behind the scenes up until then, was that DTO action plan is what does that future look like?
Sure.
We were excited to really share, hey, and you may have seen some of the visuals for like gateways into Lake Eola and Magnolia and Church Street.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to completely modernize and beautify downtown, like in a really cool way that I don't know. I mean, it's beautiful as is, but like, it's going to draw a lot of people just for that, which I think will start spurring other things as well. And the only reason I ask is because I look at other cities. I know we're in a really, I think, we're definitely in recession in a lot of ways. We probably have been for a couple of years, but I look at some cities that are throwing up skyscrapers left and right. Like Austin was doing really well for a while. Obviously that's cooled off. Nashville, which you and I were there, like they're skyscrapers everywhere. How much of is the local government versus, is it state government? Is it county government? Like, what would be a deterrent to move to Orlando, and why are other cities getting that when maybe we aren't as quickly?
So, each market is a little bit individual to that extent. From the conversations that we have, development is hyperlocal, right? Like you're looking at market dynamics that are in that individual market. You're not going to kind of value rental rates, let's say, you know what I mean? Saying, okay, here's the rent I can get for office space in downtown Orlando versus Nashville. Now, developers have a business decision to make as to, okay, what is feasible, what is functional from that perspective that drives it. So from a local development standpoint, how local municipalities kind of make impact into that is often through, what the code is.
What easier.
What requirements you have, how much parking are you requiring, how much, activation, beautification, all those type of things. And that starts to impact that financial matrix as they're building that capital stack and saying, okay, is this feasible? Where we see we can be most beneficial is identifying, ultimately what those hindrances are, whether they be code related, whether they be fiscal related, and finding unique ways to kind of go about, kind of filling that gap, which sometimes we can do. Sometimes you have to determine that, hey, maybe it's just not right. From the development framework, development timeframes, especially for large-scale urban developments, which is what we work on, are 4 or 5 years and plus if you start to look at Creative Village from that perspective as to how long it really takes to do things in the right fashion. So I think the last one we delivered was the Society, which was late last year, which is a residential building. Yeah, really funky. Love the presence that it gives right across the street from the courthouse, really starting to fill out some of that northern area of downtown. But that's kind of the last one in that last development cycle. The ones that we had kind of worked up that were kind of in that financing realm started to get caught up when, the market and interest rates started to shift. Yeah. We really haven't seen a big change in construction cost yet. Some are getting a little bit softer, but it's not enough, especially in high rise, to make large impacts. Some of the conversations that are going on right now with some of the developers that we have are, what scale of development is feasible, and are we ready to take that step? Like, do we want to go ahead and deliver some mid-rise buildings during this development cycle to kind of keep momentum happening? Or are we heart set on ensuring that, the downtown buildings that are getting delivered are the skyscrapers, so to speak, that you would expect, which is a hard conversation to ask, you know what I mean? Not to ask, but to have, because these buildings are going to define our downtown for, the next 50 plus years and potentially more. So you want to make the right decision on the forefront. So, these are things that these are active in figuring out what that next step looks like.
That makes sense. Speaking of high rise, I wanted to ask, and you probably are best guy to ask than anybody I can think of. So, Business Airport, Executive Airport is right downtown. It's true that we can't go above a certain amount downtown in terms of high rise because that's right there? Is that true? Do you know that?
So that is true. Only because if you're flying, I imagine you don't want to crash into a building.
Probably not.
But not the best thing. But yes. So we actually, any building that's getting built in downtown, you have to get their approval, and they look at the various different flight paths and say, okay, in this specific location, it's very location specific. Here's the height that's ultimately achievable in this location, or if you move over here, then you can go higher. So that is one, I don't want to say restriction, it's one rule you have to follow of many. So if that wasn't there, I'm not saying that every building in downtown would be 100 stories tall. It still probably wouldn't make financial sense to get it there. But it is something that we have to work with in situations and saying, okay, well, you know what I mean? This is the highest you're going to be able to go here.
And they're not going anywhere.
No, that they're not.
So let's talk about sports. So we talked about Tampa Bay Rays, they didn't get renewed, right? They're going to be looking for a new home. Orlando Dreamers is something that people started talking about, but I know that we're trying to get MLB. A lot of people are talking about that. There was a site that was picked out over by SeaWorld, which I guess makes sense by Convention Center, but we would see it downtown. If they came to you, would you guys fight to get something downtown? Do you think that's a good thing for downtown to have more sports activity?
So, I think you can see our commitment to sports. So hopefully,
I can. I want to hear from you though.
So if the right opportunity came up, you know what I mean, and we had those right pieces, I think we'd absolutely. In fact, if you actually look historically, when Mayor Dyer came to office, he had this downtown strategic transition team that was the 2015 piece that we were talking about before. One of the things that they envisioned was baseball in downtown. Believe it or not, we said we wound up trading it for soccer, but hey, now baseball's on the table, so maybe we need that too. So no, I think if the right metrics were on the table and it was something that would work, we would be there. But we're really actually excited about the success we've had with soccer. So when you think about Orlando now having its first title, and it's our women's team in Major League Soccer. I mean, that was huge. They got the Shield and the championship last year. Cool. So it was just great to kind of bring that home and get to celebrate with them and the community.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. It's cool to see like every time I go to a game, it's like or a match, it's electric down there. People are really into it, which is so cool. Let's talk a little bit about transportation. So we saw the downtown, the DTO ride DTO.
Yeah.
It's $1, which is like super affordable, especially if you're going to a match, you want to go hang out at a restaurant afterwards, something like that. What other initiatives are you guys working on for public transportation, or at least is that more of a county thing?
Yeah, so large-scale public transportation, absolutely something that comes in the county. When we're looking at downtown, so we were talking about limo, it's our bus rapid transit system earlier. So one of the pieces that rounding out our transportation pieces, you mentioned Ride DTO. It's 5 vehicles that you kind of call like an app, right? They're exclusive rides, so you don't have to hop in with anybody else. You don't have to worry about it. It's close quarters. So that was it's a pilot that's right now that we're ultimately trying to see if people are, if it's sticking, if people enjoy it. It's getting
people using it?
We moved like 2,300 people last month, which is a lot for 5 vehicles in the hours that we operate. Sure. So most of actually we're 4.8 stars on feedback. So people are enjoying it seems like. So we're starting those conversations okay, do we expand this and how does that impact the rest? The transportation conversations that we're also having though is looking at all those other modes of transportation, right? So one of the big things that we didn't mention before was when we were having those conversations about, okay, what does our downtown want to be, and everybody's kind of sharing their different experiences. Like you travel, and I mean, we all travel. We were in Nashville. You think, okay, what kind of one experience do you remember there? Well, different cities might be different things, right? Like, so, hey, New York, it might be a great park or some great food, or Chicago, various different things. But when we started to boil it down, and the one thing that seemed fairly, that one central force was it being walkable, so that you kind of got on your feet, which is a mode of transportation, you know what I mean, which you don't think of. And that experience that you have along the way led you to that restaurant, led you to that park, led you to that store or whatever, right? So really looking at how we improve that pedestrian experience is one big thing that we're doing. So that's part of kind of taking on all of our right-of-ways, all of our sidewalks, but also looking at the other components. So, biking is growing dramatically in our community, especially during the cooler months, and ensuring that our bike network is connected, and that not only do you have a place to ride safely, but you actually have a place to like park your bike when you get there. It's things that, you know what I mean? And okay, how feasible is this and how that component is. So we're working on that plan right now to fully connect it and have all those opportunities as well. You look at multimodal transportation. So we piloted autonomous vehicles was last year in our Creative Village area, working on our limo system. So you kind of got on in this driverless system. And it was called a Swan Shuttle. So we're looking at a lot of different things, but really looking at it, trying to kind of change the conversation a bit on what transportation is and encourage people to look at all the different modes.
Yeah, it makes a lot. I mean, I was like, 2,300 people is not a small number, by the way. Like $1, it's basically free to get around. Compared to an Uber, that's really exciting. And the fact that you're going multimodal is great. I mean, Orlando is ranked one of the worst safety for pedestrians and bikes. So is it more defined lanes? Is it how do you get it to be more safe? I am kind of curious.
So it's a little bit of everything. I'm not a transportation engineer. I'm part of some of those conversations. And it's really ranking. It's a change in your way of thinking that, who has priority in the design features? Is it vehicles? Is it throughput? Is it trying to move people through? Or is it pedestrians? Are we really highlighting those crosswalks? Are we allowing them enough time, you know what I mean, to cross and various things? So some of the things that we've been doing with our transportation department, if next time you come downtown, you might notice them, or you might have seen them already, is actually these kind of fun different components at our crosswalks where they're like orange slices that are painted there.
Sure.
But what it does is, or at least what the studies say it does is, as a driver, like you see something different, so you're naturally just kind of programmed to wait, stop. But in that
Put your phone
context,
down for 1 second.
right? Yeah, but at various contexts, then there's people also walking there,
Right.
so it's highlighting those, kind of trimming up some of our turn lanes as well, just really emphasizing that there needs to be space for pedestrians, for cyclists, and all those type of things. And it's also at the forefront of kind of our designs of the future and making sure, that we are just increasing our pedestrian friendliness.
I think it's so smart. What's something you're excited about that you're working on right now?
Something I'm excited about.
Yeah.
So, man, I'm excited about a lot. Personally, just last month, we closed on 4 different sites that we had been working on for a long time. I can tell you, I've been at the city for 15 years. One of my first projects was working on one of these sites. And it's kind of an ebb and flow over time, and maybe that's why I'm so connected to it, because it was one of the things that kind of led me there.
Sure.
But we bought 4 different sites. One of them is around the corner of Orange Avenue and Pine, which is a little pocket park. Well, we were going to make it a pocket park. It was the former location. If you've been around Central Florida for a while, I know you haven't been here this long, but there used to be a Quiznos there, so people refer to it as the Quiznos site. But anyway, the building burned down, and it's at such a vital intersection that we really just see so much opportunity to make it just a great, location of respite that actually draws you in if you're just going out for lunch or what have you. That just changes the experience you have. But along with it, we also purchased 3 other sites, 2 of which are kind of literally the entranceway to Lake Eola. So we were fortunate to purchase kind of the front one. It was a former 7-Eleven. About maybe a year and a half ago or so, we converted it to a small interim pocket park.
Yep.
But now the 2 behind it, one of them be a historic house, another a 5-story building, really allow us to now have that grand entry into the park, which we really see changes the way that Lake Eola Park can really interact with downtown.
Sure.
And the space that it'll have. So those 2 pieces are again, they're moving forward right now. We're working on the RFPs to get them done. But the other one, which is just kind of a personal exciting piece of mine, the last piece that we purchased was 1 North Orange. When you've come downtown, you've probably passed by it. Mm-hmm. It's that bank building.
Oh, yeah.
Right on the corner of Orange and Central.
Sure.
There hasn't been activation for 15 years, but historically, when you look at the building, if you like architecture, it's just one of those things that you can kind of step back. You feel like there's, a building like this in every major city. And here we are, Orlando, and we have one too. And we just get the chance now to really reintroduce it into the marketplace and get people to really experience some of the great architecture that we have.
What are you going to do with it?
I can't tell you that right now.
Oh, dang. Okay. You're not tearing it down.
No.
Okay.
So, it was
doing something cool with it.
It's funny. There's so many great ideas, about what it can be.
Yeah.
And we're in that process now of figuring out what can it be, but also what should it be?
Sure.
Because they're different questions. But, my hope for what it can be is, I really want that ground floor, really 2 floors. So I imagine you either been hopefully at some point in a historic bank, or you at least seen them in movies when you kind of walk in that grand foyer and it's like 2 stories.
Yeah.
You see that mezzanine and you're looking down. Well, that's the context of what this building was, right? So it's been changed. It's been worked with over time, but those bones are still there.
Roll back time a little bit.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Kind of pull back some different layers that have been put
cool.
on to kind of unlock that opportunity. But what I would really love there is to really have some type of destination restaurant. You know what I mean? That's the place that you want to go. You want when you have a friend in town. You know what I mean? That's not from here. Like, oh no, we're going here. You know what I mean? Like, you got to see this place. So I'm hoping really that we can figure out a really great way and find a really good operator to be able to make something like that work. The upper floors. When we were ultimately looking at this on the front end and figuring out, hey, what might work, we test fit different residential, some type of micro units, which is, we talked about the society earlier, which is a kind of a concept that they've kind of worked with there, or office space. So we have a similar building, kind of a block down. It's called the Metcalf building that's made office space work. But whatever it is, we know that it just has to be reintroduced to the market in the right way. And now it has its challenges, just like anything else. I'm not saying that, there's a reason why that it hasn't been activated. Right. But, my piece in kind of really being one of the ones leading the charge to make the purchase was, if you even just look at our name and what we're charged to do, we're the community redevelopment agency, and
Yeah.
and we have that responsibility to make those challenging redevelopment projects and sites feasible. So excited to be able to work on those and bring some change.
Got a couple more for you in
Yeah.
terms of community redevelopment, as you mentioned it. So some people are very anti-development, like anti-redevelopment. They want it to be the same forever. How do you deal with that community piece where you're like, you want to? Is it just listening to what people say and hopefully trying to find the best for everyone, or is it like, hey, this is the vision, we're moving forward, kind of regardless? Unpack that for us.
Sure. So, it's an ever evolving conversation, right? So, as with anything, you kind of come to points where you can't give everybody exactly what they want.
Sure.
Because everybody wants a little bit different things. So, the way I see it, at least in my role, is really figuring out, okay, you use the term unpacking, like getting a little bit below like what things that people are sharing with us. I want great park space, or I want something that I can do with my kids, right? Like, but really at the ground, at the foundational level, like what does that mean to you? And I think what we find in those situations is there's not a lot different. Like we're all people at the end of the day, and we all want to be really proud and excited about our city center.
Yeah.
So even a little bit about with the park piece that I was mentioning before, it's about kind of bringing those folks together, sharing that, okay, you know what I mean? You said you were hoping for this, but here's the way we're going to go about it. You know what I mean? We're going to have a component of that in what we're delivering, but we're also need to do, this X, Y, and Z along the way. Holistically, what we find is most often people are happy that progress is being made. Like, no, we're happy. Maybe it's not exactly what I wanted, but they're happy to see that the progress and the investment that's happening with their city. There's always naysayers.
Yeah.
There's always folks
regardless
that,
of what you do.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Or like, this is not going to work, or this is not the right direction for our city, and those type of things. And you just work through that process. What I try to do just personally is ensure that, we are listening and we're being transparent. And in that context, hopefully there's a level of, consciousness that people are willing to accept. So.
Yeah, man. Thanks for your work. I'm excited. I've been a big proponent of downtown. I think it's like this, not really blank. It's not a blank canvas because there's so many cool things going on, but there are some of these pockets that are just really excited to see what it could be.
For sure.
And the fact that you guys are at the forefront and you care means the world. So thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.